As the boys continued to cruise around town, they bumped into their friends. They were really confident now and even bragged to their friends about their discovery. WD-40 really could do anything, including replacing engine oil. There was no need to use any other oil, ever. It truly was a magical concoction. Why people didn't use it on car engines regularly was entirely beyond them, but soon they'd make a startling discovery that would change their minds. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. As they teens continued their pioneering drive down the lane, they soon began to realize their celebrations might have been premature. Soon, the engine was making a weird, screeching sound, and soon after, smoke started to appear under the car's hood. Once the smoke started, a strong, burning smell wasn't long to follow, but the boys were actually quite interested to see what that meant and what might happen next. So, for science, they kept driving. Because the smoke was obstructing their vision, the boys decided to pull over. Smoke was still pouring out of the engines, and the boys were looking forward to seeing something spectacular, but they felt they should help the car along if they really wanted things to end with a bang. Second, in order to maintain scientific rigor, they needed to drain the existing engine oil, making sure the car's engine was bone dry, before they poured the blue and yellow canned elixir in its place. With the car's oil thoroughly drained, our entrepreneurially spirited youngsters could put a funnel in the oil tank, rip open a nice, cold can of WD-40, and start filling the car up with the ubiquitous liquid. If you know anything about the scientific process, you know that experiments must have predictions that they either prove or disprove. And so, as this was being done for science, the young mechanical geniuses behind this escapade decided to make predictions and place bets on how long it would take before something, anything, happened to the car. One predicted the engine would keep running for a mere 5 minutes, while another thought everything would be absolutely fine. Filming the entire thing for posterity, the teens gingerly approached the car and very carefully turned the key. The car's engine was purring as per normal, so the teens decided they'd take it for a test drive. A little worried about wearing seat belts, in case they needed to get out of the car fast, they eventually got in and took the car for a little spin down a quiet back road near their house. As they continued to drive, they gained more confidence. The car was driving along without a hitch, place, and it seemed as if WD-40 could indeed be used as engine oil. But soon, things would turn sour and fast. As the boys continued to cruise around town, they bumped into their friends. They were really confident now and even bragged to their friends about their discovery. WD-40 really could do anything, including replacing engine oil. There was no need to use any other oil, ever. It truly was a magical concoction. Why people didn't use it on car engines regularly was entirely beyond them, but soon they'd make a startling discovery that would change their minds. As they teens continued their pioneering drive down the lane, they soon began to realize their celebrations might have been premature. Soon, the engine was making a weird, screeching sound, and soon after, smoke started to appear under the car's hood. Once the smoke started, a strong burning smell wasn't long to follow, but the boys were actually quite interested to see what that meant and what might happen next. So, for science, they kept driving. Because the smoke was obstructing their vision, the boys decided to pull over. This was a good chance to look at the car from outside to see what might be wrong with it from a different angle. Smoke was still pouring out of the engines, and the boys were looking forward to seeing something spectacular, but they felt they should help the car along if they really wanted things to end with a bang. To see just how much abuse WD-40 could actually take, they switched the car off and placed a heavy lead pipe on the gas pedal. Switching the car back on again, they made sure it was shifted into park mode and let the floored gas pedal do its thing. They were sure they were in for a show, but they didn't realize just how extreme it would get. Pressing the gas in a parked car wouldn't do much to one in good condition, let alone one that had its engine oil replaced with WD-40. So the boys figured the engine was already a lost cause. Now, they were just waiting for it to blow. They decided to keep things scientific, timing the process and placing bets. One guessed it would take 10 minutes for something to happen. Another said 4. The group was eager and excited, all gathered around the car. Would it explode? Would it outperform expectations? As the engine ran, the group took in the mechanical chaos. The car was noisy, screeching, and grinding, clearly struggling. The tension built with every second. Then, flames suddenly burst from the rear tire. The fire spread slowly, and the teens erupted with excitement. This was exactly what they had hoped for. But the real surprise was still coming. While the group's attention was fixed on the growing flames, the engine suddenly caught fire and exploded in a massive fireball. Rather than run, the teens shouted with joy, thrilled by the dramatic climax. Despite the explosion, the engine kept running smoothly, even. The boys were astonished by how resilient it seemed. Eventually, the heat overwhelmed the engine, and it stopped after nearly 4 minutes. Just as they were processing this, another massive explosion erupted, engulfing the car in flames. A wave of heat hit the crowd, and it was clear. The car was finished. Once the fire burned out, the teens towed the charred remains away, doing their part not to litter. On the way home, they excitedly rehashed what they'd witnessed. Who would have guessed WD-40 could have such an explosive effect? As the video wrapped up, the team behind the camera finally revealed his face and gave a quick summary of the experiment. Could WD-40 replace engine oil? His verdict? Sorta. Kinda. Not really. Wouldn't recommend it. Still, he admitted it was all anecdotal. Perhaps others might try similar experiments and see different results, but the video wasn't over yet. He announced one last surprise, a giveaway. Viewers could enter to win a classic Mazda RX-7 FD simply by commenting on the video. So, who was this person with the means to destroy one car and give away another? His name, Orion Dajnowics, a popular YouTuber with over 450,000 subscribers. Known for over-the-top automotive content, Orion had built a loyal audience over the years. However, not everyone was pleased. Some critics felt the video misleadingly implied that WD-40 alone caused the explosion. The footage suggested the product failed as an engine oil substitute and was to blame for the destruction. But whether it was science, spectacle, or sensationalism, one thing was certain: it made for an unforgettable show. Following this wave of criticism, Orion reflected on the video and the choices they made. Although their intentions were driven by curiosity, they hadn't researched enough. Had they looked into WD-40's chemical makeup and purpose, they might have predicted the results. Still, Orion admitted that despite the risks, it was an unforgettable experience and a fun way to spend time with friends. Because of this experience, Orion felt confident enough to test WD-40's limits, but he emphasized that this does not make it safe for others to attempt. Orion lives and breathes cars and has a strong mechanical background. Most viewers don't and shouldn't follow in his footsteps. WD-40 should never replace engine oil, and under no circumstances should this experiment be replicated. It was dangerous, and things could have ended very differently. But just when viewers thought the wild experiments were over, Orion and his crew came up with a new idea, one even more bizarre than the last. They decided to see if baby oil could serve as engine oil. Still buzzing from the WD-40 disaster, the group set off to buy supplies. This time, they headed to Walmart, searching for one very specific aisle, the baby aisle. Amid rows of wipes, pacifiers, and diapers, they found its shelves stocked with bottles of baby oil. Laughing as they loaded their cart, they drew attention. A curious employee asked what they needed so much baby oil for. Their cheeky reply? They were hosting a wrestling party. Back home, they drained their beat-up Toyota Camry of its old oil and began the slow task of filling the engine with baby oil. Not everyone agreed. One of the boys predicted the car wouldn't last the day. Still, bets were placed. The guys generally agreed that if the car managed to drive 100 miles or more on baby oil without overheating, smoking, or making strange noises, it would be a clear sign that baby oil could function at least temporarily as a motor oil substitute. Once the engine was completely filled with baby oil, the real test began. To see if baby oil could withstand heat and engine pressure, they would drive the car beyond operating temperature, then hit the road for a full test. As the engine warmed up and everything still ran smoothly, their excitement grew. This was the moment of truth. 30 miles in, the team reached the point of no return. If something went wrong, they'd need outside help. But they were confident. After 70 miles, the car was still running perfectly, no smoke, no overheating, and the engine sounded great. It looked like Orion might win the bet after all. When they reached their destination, their plan to secure a second car fell apart. The vehicle they had come to see was in terrible condition, filled with trash, used syringes, and appeared to be hot-wired. It was a complete no-go. With no backup car available, their only option was to trust the baby oil-filled Toyota to get them home. As they began the return journey, Orion remained optimistic. while his friend continued to doubt the car would make it the full 100 miles. But then it happened. Just as the odometer ticked over the 100-mile mark, the car kept running smooth, steady, and without issue. By the time the group returned home, the car had covered 186.6 miles on baby oil alone. Given that baby oil is a refined form of mineral oil, the same base used in many motor oils, the results made sense. The boys were thrilled. Not only had they proved their point, but the engine still ran smoothly and gave off a soft coconut scent.